Hello, everybody. Today, we dedicate our session to the updates on East Turkestan / Uyghur case against Chinese officials and question and answer session. So today's session is consists of this panel on which we have Mr. Rodney Dixon, QC, at Temple Garden Chambers, and Mr. Salih Khudaya as Prime Minister of East Turkestan government in exile, and me as moderator, as well as an advisor to the President of the East Turkestan government in exile, also EU representative of this East Turkestan government in exile. Today, we will give you the recent updates on this East Turkestan case at International Criminal Court. So, first of all, I will give the floor to Mr. Salih Khudaya to give us a speech concerning this matter. Yes, Mr. Salih, please, floor is yours.
Firstly, assalamu alaikum to everyone who is currently watching this event on live stream. Барлық шарқ түркістандық брендашлар ва мушу нақ мейданны күрәватқанларга аммаңларга салам. I would also like to wish everyone a happy Eid. Аммаңларныңки текрар Рамазан айтыңлар құтлук болсын. As you all know, we launched a case against Chinese officials at the International Criminal Court back in July 6th of 2020, urging the International Criminal Court to investigate and prosecute Chinese officials for the ongoing genocide of Uyghur, Kazakhs, Kyrgyz, and other Turkic peoples in East Turkestan. Since we submitted this, the ICC initially stated that they did not have enough evidence to investigate, to establish jurisdiction, requesting further evidence. And we followed up and made further submissions, even sent investigators on the ground into Central Asia to find further evidence of what was indeed happening, the targeting of Uyghurs and other Turkic peoples, where they were forcibly deported or sent back, or even taken, abducted by Chinese agents and taken back into East Turkestan. More recently, we have also worked to bring one of these, a recent victim of China's concentration camps to the United States to testify publicly for the first time about what the Chinese government was doing inside East Turkestan, as well as what is happening to Uyghurs and other Turkic peoples from East Turkestan in Central Asia. And many of you, our peoples, especially across the diaspora, have been wanting to hear about what is happening, wanting to learn about the updates regarding our case and what we are doing and what needs to happen in the future to ensure that the ICC investigates China. So in this regard, I will leave it to our head lawyer, Mr. Rodney Dixon QC, to briefly explain, in detail explain what has been done and what are the next steps and what we hope to, get accomplished in the coming months. Thank you.
So thank you, Salih. Now floor is to you, Mr. Rodney QC. So please give us updates on this case.
Thank you very much. Greetings all. Happy Eid to all of you and your families. I'm most grateful for the opportunity to be able to address you about the ICC case and where we stand at the moment. This is the case that we filed on behalf of the East Turkestan government in exile and Uyghur victims. I can imagine that many of you are thinking, why is this taking so long? When are things going to happen? As the Prime Minister said, this has been ongoing for nearly 2 years now. July 2020 was when we first filed, and we're coming up to July 2022. We have to take into account that in the intervening period, there has been a change in prosecutor. So that does slow things down in terms of them considering it. There's also been the terrible COVID pandemic, which has made it hard to gather evidence. But the main reason that we have to take into consideration, and this is not to look to make excuses, we just have to deal with the realities of the court, is the fact that it is a court that moves slowly in these areas and is focused on many cases around the world. Not that it is a competition or should be a competition, but that's the reality we have to face. We have to get our case recognized. Of course, it should be a priority. It's an ongoing genocide that is taking place under our noses. But that doesn't automatically mean that the ICC will look at it right away. We have to work at getting the ICC's attention on this case. And that is taking time. The reason being is that we need to give it the evidence. That has taken time to collect, but we have been able now that we've been able to travel again, get to bordering countries like Tajikistan, like Kazakhstan, Turkistan, others, as well as countries like Turkey, to gather first-hand evidence. We need to provide that to the ICC. That's one of the main ways in which we can get the case off the ground, is if we give them compelling evidence. But we also need the outspoken support of the international community, which has been coming in relation to condemnation, in relation to labeling what is happening genocide, but it's slower in coming in calling for accountability. There still is no international investigation by the UN, by anybody, into these crimes. We've seen what has happened in Ukraine recently, where there's been, rightly so, a dramatic outpouring of support for an international investigation by the ICC. We need the same thing triggered in relation to East Turkestan. I think that the fact that the Ukraine has been able to achieve that is positive, because it shows it's possible. It is possible for the international community to act as one, unified, and call for an international investigation. This is something we've been highlighting is needed for a long time in relation to East Turkestan and against China. Well, the international community has shown its true colors now. It is able to do that, and it should replicate that for the situation in East Turkestan, which, without making comparisons, is obviously as serious as what is happening in Ukraine. And it's been going on for much longer, and it threatens an entire people and their future. So it can't be one law for those living in Ukraine, but a different one for those living in East Turkestan. It needs to be applied equally. And we will be putting the pressure on the ICC and on governments worldwide to do the right thing now, both in relation to Ukraine, rightly so, but in relation to East Turkestan as well, and to draw the links. What is significant here is that Russia is being supported and propped up by China. They are in an alliance, and they are approaching dealing with those inside and outside of the countries in much the same way, with belligerence, with disdain, with no respect, and certainly not upholding the rule of law and international law. So there's a commonality here that we must rely on, and we certainly will be doing that now, more and more at the ICC and globally with governments. I make these points to show why we are at this stage now with an investigation not opened yet. It isn't opened yet. That is our aim, to get it open as soon as possible. But we've had to get the evidence to get to that point. We have succeeded in that regard. We have strong, credible evidence now, which is before the ICC and the prosecutor in particular to consider. The Prime Minister mentioned that recently we were able to get somebody out of Turkistan who'd been in a camp in East Turkistan, who can give valuable evidence about what happened there, but also on the jurisdictional issue of Tajikistan. As you know, Tajikistan is the state that neighbors East Turkistan, that is signed up to the ICC, and for acts that have taken place there and continuing to China, the court has jurisdiction. That's the doorway in to this case opening. We have to recognize that China is not signed up, so there's no automatic jurisdiction for acts that happen on Chinese territory. But when Chinese officials cross the border and come on to the territory of ICC state parties like Tajikistan, then the court does have jurisdiction. When it comes there to target Uyghurs and other Turkic peoples and bring them back to China to persecute them, then the court does have jurisdiction. In exactly the same way as the court has jurisdiction in relation to the Ukraine. Russia is not signed up, but they're coming into territory, Ukraine, which is signed up under a declaration. That gives the court jurisdiction. And they've been talking about deportations in that context, persons being taken out of Ukraine and back to Russia, and saying they have jurisdiction over those cases. Well, exactly the same applies. Obviously, the facts are somewhat different, but exactly the same legal principle applies in relation to Tajikistan. China is coming over the border, targeting and collecting Uyghurs and deporting them back into China where they are persecuted. So there's no difference as a matter of law. The court has jurisdiction, and the court should act in a consistent and pragmatic way. This is what we are emphasizing through the new evidence that we've gathered from this witness who we managed to get out. He's a public witness, which is good as well, because it'll bring a public face to the victims. All of our other evidence so far that we've submitted is confidential because the victims are concerned about themselves or their families. But in this case, his entire family is outside now, living in the US, and he's able to give his evidence publicly. We're preparing that evidence now to give to the ICC prosecutor very soon. And we have other evidence as well that we've gathered in other countries. This will now be our third dossier of evidence, over and above the complaint that we filed in July. We filed that in July, and then we filed 2 dossiers of evidence since then, once we've been able to get onto the ground to collect it. And this will be the third. So we are building a considerable mass of evidence now, which the prosecutor has to take seriously, has to consider, and we will be putting on all necessary pressure to ensure that the ICC looks at this matter as soon as possible. Yes, they've got lots of other situations, including Ukraine, but there's no reason why this case should not be looked at as a priority as well. And if the court is asking for additional resources for investigations for Ukraine, well, they could do exactly the same in our case. And we should be ready to make those resources available so that this case can be taken up. So our priorities over the next coming months, and this is important because we need you to go out and spread the word, to support us on this, are threefold. First of all, we are identifying further witnesses, like the witness who came out to the US, Mr. Dixon. We're identifying further persons like that to get out of East Turkestan or neighboring countries so they can give evidence safely to the ICC. There are a number of people who are potentially ready to come forward if they've got confidentiality and security. And the example of Mr. Dixon has sent a positive message out that this can be done. You can get out, you can be safe, you can then give your evidence. You shouldn't hide in fear. Of course, it's entirely up to the person and their family concerned, but this has given a pathway out, and we're hoping more will follow now. So this is our first main priority, to get those witnesses out to give the evidence. The stronger the evidence, the more compelling, the more that it is out there publicly, the greater will be the pressure on the international community and the ICC to open this investigation. That is vital. This can't be done behind closed doors. It has to be done very publicly. You've seen how the public attention on Ukraine has shifted the response of the international community to embrace the ICC, even the US, who's not signed up. We need to replicate that with the East Turkistan situation. Secondly, we need to ensure that we get governments to support the call for the ICC to intervene. IPAC have said it already. Some governments have come out. We've been working on others. We are close to getting more to come out and make that call very loudly. So getting international support to resonate now is a critical priority. And we'll be working on that in the EU Parliament with Dr. Ala there. We are due to have an event there in the Parliament soon. We'll be working on other parliaments to promote our case, to show why it is viable as a matter of law and fact, and most importantly, why, as a question of principle and morality, the international community cannot sit back and conduct no investigation whatsoever. We've heard about the High Commissioner for Human Rights wanting to go to East Turkistan, that could well go ahead. But if it does, we need to make sure that it's a proper investigation, that the UN is allowed access, that they can bring out evidence. And the evidence they bring out, they mustn't just put in the filing cabinets and on the memory sticks. They need to, like they've done in other situations, like in Syria and Yemen, they need to have that evidence available for further investigation and prosecution, to provide it to the bodies that can take this up. And I highlight here in particular the ICC, which is the natural home for this prosecution. It was set up exactly for these very serious cases involving genocide. And then thirdly, we need to look at a comprehensive media campaign to provide information to the general public about what is really happening, and equally what can be done to provide a remedy. It's not as though there is a shut door where it is impossible for there ever to be accountability. There's this sense of inevitability, which I find very disturbing, that people say, oh, well, nothing will ever happen. That's not true. That is so defeatist. If we start with that attitude, we'll get nowhere. People have to believe, because there is a route for there to be an investigation and prosecution. No one believed that Russia could possibly be investigated by the ICC, a member of the Security Council. Many people thought it wouldn't happen, but it's happening now. And exactly the same thing could happen with their ally, China. And it should happen. There's no obstacle other than sometimes there being an innate fear or uncertainty or just not knowing how to do it. Well, there is a pathway to this. We can provide the evidence. We can show how this can be done. And the more people that come out to provide evidence, witnesses like the one who's gone to the US, the more will come. They will encourage others to come. There'll be a wealth of evidence that the case can be based on. So these are our three immediate goals over the coming weeks and months: to get that further evidence, to get it into the ICC, to engage the ICC prosecutor to take it up, to engage the politicians, to engage the ICC prosecutor at all levels, as has happened in other situations, most notably Ukraine. I think we've seen that the international community will interact with the ICC. There's no reason why it shouldn't, and it should definitely do so in this case. And then thirdly, we need a concerted media campaign to promote this amongst the general public, because that will then also put pressure on our politicians and on the court to do the right thing. So we are working at all three levels. We have a number of events coming up. We have a number of meetings with parliaments and parliamentarians, politicians. We have media campaigns planned. And of course, on the legal side, we're developing the routes to get the evidence and to get more of that put before the prosecutor with our necessary backed up legal submissions. And we will also be following very closely what the Human Rights Commissioner is doing. There's no point in this being a window dressing exercise. It must be done properly or not done at all, but it should be done in the right way to get evidence out, and then that evidence must be used. The point of this is not just to go there and shake hands, but to go there to find out what is happening, and if there are violations, and we know there are, then those must be exposed, and there must be mechanisms set up to investigate. These will be what we are going to focus our wholehearted attention on over the next while. We need your support. I cannot emphasize that enough in doing this. If you know there's evidence, tell us about it. To support our media campaigns, to support our events, to look at where you have contacts to make the case, to give us access to anyone who we know could have an influence, whether it be parliamentarians, politicians, those in civil society, social media. We need it to be a major, widespread campaign now over the next while to heighten this and to truly believe we can do it. So I'm asking tonight, and this is one of the main reasons for our update, for your support widely on this. We are here to answer any of your questions. I will do that now, and to receive any of your information and evidence and contacts to follow up. This is an interactive process. This is not lawyers and investigators going off and doing something on our own in the dark. We need to do this all together. Together we will be stronger. Together we will give ourselves the best chance of succeeding. We obviously need financial support to keep this going as well. We've got investigators in the field. We need to be able to fund them, to find witnesses. We need to then help witnesses get out. So we need to cover expenses and be able to protect them, make sure that their families are not exposed. We need to be able to fund our efforts to have events with parliamentarians, to get meetings with them, to be able to go and engage and lobby them. And the media, we need our PR campaign to be funded so that it can rise to the highest levels. We know what we're up against. We're up against the state that has limitless resources to throw at us. Of course, we have nothing near that, but we need as much as we can to counteract that. We have truth and right on our side, so we know that we can overcome that. But we need support and finances to keep that going on a sustained basis. It can't be here and there. It needs to be ongoing all the time, fighting forth. So anything that you are able to donate to us or to get others to do, to keep our investigators, the staff, the witnesses that we need to support helped, that would be much appreciated. I think Dr. Ala will mention that we have a crowd fund which is on the page. Donations can be made directly there or directly to the government in exile or directly to us overseeing the campaign, however you wish to do it. The crowdfund is probably the easiest, but there's a link to that there which explains what we're doing. We would greatly encourage you to support that, to spread that around, and then we'll keep you informed as to what we're doing each step of the way. You know now from the talk what we have done and what we will be doing in the coming months, and we should have regular discussions like this so you're informed, so we can do this together to achieve our goals as one. We are at a critical junction now. The ICC is firmly on the map worldwide. It's talked about all the time on the news now because of what's happening in other parts of the world. It is very much part of everyday life, both for parliamentarians, politicians, but the general public as well. So we must seize that opportunity to show how the court, properly exercising its jurisdiction, can and should investigate this case and put on trial those who are responsible. For too long, there has been nothing done to in any way signal to those who are committing the most heinous crimes that they will at least be investigated. And where there's sufficient evidence, and we believe there's ample evidence, we provided that to the ICC already and will provide more. Where that exists, then there should be prosecutions. And we should not fear taking that process forward. The law is there to ensure that international law, the laws of human rights, the laws of all of us as human beings, is implemented regardless of any political considerations. The paramount concern is for justice for the victims, for those who have suffered. And when they turn around and say we have justice, then we've achieved our goal, not until anyone else does. And that can only happen through a thorough investigation and independent court process. The ICC is the place for that, and we will pursue it with everything that we have. Thank you for your time and for listening today. I know you probably have many other things going on, family gatherings, celebrations, but thank you for your time. It really means a lot to us. And I hope I've been able to answer your questions, but if not, you can ask any now and I'll go ahead and do my very best. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Rodney. I would like to make a very brief translation of the essence of what you have delivered to us. So your message is very important and very urgent. So I would like to, first of all, before I translate the essence of your speech, I would like to give the brief timeline of what has been done in our efforts to submit a complaint to the International Criminal Court concerning the Uyghur case. So I will give you a very brief timeline. First of all, on the 6th of July 2020, representatives of the East Turkestan government in exile and the East Turkestan National Awakening Movement submitted an official complaint to the prosecutor OTP at the ICC asking for an investigation to be opened. And basis for this is that the crimes were committed initially in Tajikistan and ICC member and continued into China. Ben Uygurca sözde bugünkü yığınımızdaki asas maksidi Şərqi Türkistan, yani Uyghur meselesindeki xalqara jinoyat ishlar sotiga sunulishdagi taraqqiyot ishlarini qarata sizlarga bir ma'lumot berish. Bu Şərqi Türkistan sürgün hükümeti ve Şərqi Türkistan Milli Uyg'unish hareketinden ibaret bu ikki organ, birisi hükümet, yani birisi teşkilat nomidan xalqaro jinoyat ishlar sotiga sunulgan bu şu Xitoyninki xalqaro jinoyat ishlar sotiga a'zo davlatlarning ichidagi Uyg'urlarni Xitoyga qaytarib akitib, bu yerda ularni jazolaganlikka oid jinoiy faktlarni to'plab, bu faktlarni rasmiy bir doklad sifatida xalqaro jinoyat ishlar sunish orqali Xitoyni xalqaro jinoiy ishlar qonuni bo'yicha jazoga tortishni talab qilish hareketi boshlandi. Bundan keyin bu ishning bo'lg'ini hozircha 2 yildek vaqt bo'ldi. Hamda ikkinchi qitim, ya'ni 2021-yili 7-oyning 10-kuni ikkinchi materiallar, yig'ilgan ikkinchi materiallar bu xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotininki bosh tekshiruvchisiga, ayblanuvchisiga yo'llandi. Buningda asosan shu Xitoyni qanday qilib xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotiga a'zo davlatlarda turayotgan Uyg'urlarni qaytarib ketib jazolaganligiga oid materiallar shohidlarninki bayonlariga asosan ratlab chiqildi. Ya'ni buningda asos qilinib Tojikistondagi Uyg'urlarninki, ya'ni necha minglagan Uyg'urlarninki Xitoylarninki bexatarlik organlarininki odamlari tarafidan qanday qilgan holda sistemlik turda Xitoyga qaytarilganligi, albatta bu yerda Tojikiston hukumatininki yordami bor, qaytarilganligiga oid shohidlarninki bayonlari to'planib bu xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotiga yo'llanadigan bu dokladga kiritildi. Endi bu yerda muhim bir nuqta, ayni vaqtda bu bizningki shu Şərqi Türkistan sürgün hükümeti bilan bu Rodney Dixonninki bu advokatlar bu advokatlarınki yetekçilikide Tacikistan'ın özüde tutup Tacikistan'da muşu Uygurlarınki qandaq qilib Xitoy qaytarganligiga oid materiallarga qarata tekshirish, maxfiy tekshirish ilib berildi, keng ko'lamlik. Ham bu tekshirishning davomi sifatida biz bir necha shohidlar bilan ular o'zining salohiyatini oshkorlash xohlamadi. Shu shohidlar bilan biz suhbat olib berish va ularningki og'zidan ayni vaqtda bo'lgan ishlarga qarata shohidlik materiallarini to'plab, buni biz o'zimizningki yo'llangan dokladlarga qattiq. Hem de üçüncü bu materyal yani 2021 yılı 11. ayının 11. günü tayarlandı. Hem tayarlanan materyal paket üstüde xalqara jinoiy ishlar sotiga yollandı. Bunun da asasen şu Xitoyning Uyg'urlarni xalqara jinoiy ishlar sotiga a'zo davlatlardan maxfiy holda ketganligiga oid uchurlar va paketlar ilgirlagan holda ketildi. Bo'lapmi bu yerda biz Tojikistandan sırt, hem Tojikistan'ın öz içi hem onun da sırt başka O'rta Asiyodagi başka devletlerini öz içi aldı bunun da. Bu devletler Kırgızistan, Kazakistan, Özbekistan ve Türkiye O'rta Asiyodagi devletler, O'rta Sharqda muşlarda yaşayotgan Uyg'urlarning qandaq qilib maxfiy holda Xitoyga qaytarilganligiga oid faktlar ve şahitlarninki bayonlari bunga ketildi. Shuning bilan bizdeki bu yollar xalqara jinoiy ishlar sotiga yo'llagan bizdeki materialimiz texdimmi paketchanlikqa, texdimmi amaliyotchanlikqa ega bo'lib, uning qonuniyligi texdimmi oshdi. Anandan oxirisi hammaning xabarida bo'lishi mumkin. 2022 oyda biz Qirg'izistondan bir Qirg'iz bizden bir Kırgız kardeşimiz 3. devletler arkalık özünki ayali ve ballarından kaçıp çıktı. Onun ismi Ovalbek Turdahım oldu. Bu kardeşimiz bu Amerika'da özünün 5'ten geçirmişlerini sözleş arkalık yani 13. April sözleş arkalık bizni şu Xitoyninki Uyg'urlarning yurgizgan turli zulmlar haqida texdimmi ilgirlagan bizga faktlarni ta'minladi. Demak, bu bizningki shu Uyg'ur masalasi, Sharq Turkiston va Uyg'ur masalasini xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotiga yo'llashdagi bizningki besib o'tgan yo'limiz. Endi men Rodney Dixonninki so'zini qisqacha tarjima qilaman. Qisqacha tarjima qilish orqali sizlarning diqqatingizga mushu 2 yillar ichida nimalarning bo'lganligi haqida sözlerini diqqatingizga yetkazman. Rodney'nin deyişçe bizdeki Sharq Turkiston Uyg'ur masalasini xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotiga yo'llash ishimiz 2 yildan beri nəhayət qiyin bo'lsa-mu, yanıla o'zi ko'zlagan maqsadni yetyapti, ham ma'lum bir ilgirlashlarga erishib, ma'lum bir natijalarni qozonadi. Ammo shundan bir vaqtda biz oldimizda yanıla biz qilishga tegishgan nurg'un ishlar bor. Oldi bilan shuni ta'kidlash kerakki, bu Sharq Turkistonninki ishini xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotiga yo'llash ichida biz material to'plash va shohidlarninki bayonlari orqali materiallarning paketchaligini oshirish va uni xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotiga yo'llashdan iborat bu ishni asosan g'alabalik holda tugatdik. Ammo shundan bir vaqtda biz to'xtamasdan yana materialni yig'yapmiz. Shu Uyg'urlar qaytarilgan davlatlardagi şu material yığış işleri ve bulapma tekşir işlerini devamlı hep veriyoruz. Biz hem de pat yakın arada biz xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotininki baş ayıptegüçisininki bu bizdeki bu ayıpnomamizni qarab chiqishini umid qilib shuni kutyapmiz. Hem de bizdeki işlerimizde yanıla 2 yılda yanıla bir xil vaqt uzunga so'zlab ketish ahvoli ko'rildi. Buningdagi asosiy masalalarning birisi biri xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotininki baş ayıptegüchisi almashdi. İkincisi bu Covid'den ibaret bu pandemik sebeplik nurg'un ishlar qulaysız oldu. Bulapma bizningki naq maydonda tekshirish elib berish ishlarimiz ve şahitler bilan ko'rishish ve ularninki og'zidan shohidlik bayonnomalarni elish qator nurg'un ishlarimizda ba'zi bir qiyinchiliklar ko'rildi. Ammo shundoq bo'lsa-mu, biz bütün tirishchiliklarni ko'rsatish orqali bu paketlarni yig'ish ishlarida zo'r ilgirlashlarni qo'lga keltirdik. Endi biz yaqinda biz şu Yevropa miqyosida bo'libmi shu Yevropadagi har qaysi davlatlarning parlament a'zolari va siyosiylar bilan ko'rishish va shu Uyg'ur masalasiningki shu tonilishi, ularning orasida tushunilishi, shunday ularni qo'llashni qo'lga keltirish orqali shu xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotiga sunilgan dokladimizningki salmoqini oshirish bo'libmi? Bu orqali biz xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotiga besim tushish orqali Uyg'urlarning biz sungan shu materiallarni xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotining ko'rib chiqishi, ko'zdan kechirib chiqishi va bu vaqtda tekshirishni boshlashni qo'lga keltirmoqchi bo'lyapmiz. Hamda hammanglar ko'ryapsizlar, hozir Ukrainaninki ishlarida xalqaro jinoiy ishlar soti tekshirish olib berilyapti. Bu yerda biz shuni ko'ryapmizki, shunday bir ijobiy yuzlanishni ko'ryapmizki, demak, dunyodagi nurg'unlagan kishilik huquq tashkilotlari bo'lsin, xalqaro shu qonun organlari bo'lsin, boshqa hukumatlar va parlamentlar bo'lsin, ularningki ma'lum bir elib berilayotgan bir jinoyatga bo'lgan diqqati, ko'ngil bo'lishi oshgan vaqtida buningda biz nurg'unlagan ishlarningki, nurg'unlagan bu vaqtdagi tekshirishlarningki va bu vaqtdagi ayblashlarningki va bu vaqtdagi buni qarshi turish qatorliq faoliyatlarningki nihoyatda unumli va o'zaro moslashgan shaklda elib berilganligini ko'rdik. Amaliyotda Ukrainaninki xalqaro jinoiy ishlar soti tarafidan tekshirilishi bilan Sharqi Turkistondagi Uyg'urlarning ishiningki xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotida ko'rilish o'tirisida mohiyatlik o'xshashlik bor. Gerçi bunun da bazı bir farklar bo'lsin, ammo xalqaro qonunninki xalqaro qonun va xalqaroliq prinsiplarninki ijro qilinishiningki tartiblari, tekshirish tartiblari bo'lsin, uni qarab chiqish va uni jinoyatchilarga qarata aybnomani hozirlash va ularni sotlash va ular jazo berish qatorliq tartiblarda asosan cho'ng farqi yo'q, asosan cho'ng o'xshashlik bor. Albatta, bu yerda o'xshashlikning muhimligini ko'rsatishga to'g'ri keladi. Bu yerda birinchisi Rossiya bilan Xitoy har ikkalasi xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotininki a'zosi emas. Ammo ularninki masalan Rossiyaninki Ukraina jinoiy sodir qilishi bilan, Ukrainaga qarshi jinoiy sodir qilishi bilan Xitoyninki Uyg'urlarga qarshi jinoiy sodir qilishi o'rtasida o'xshashlik bor. Ya'ni Rossiya xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotiga a'zo bo'lgan Ukrainaning ichiga kirib, bu yerdan Ukrainaliklarni Rossiyaga olib, bu yerda ularni jazolaganligi bilan Xitoylarninki xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotiga a'zo bo'lgan Tojikistondagi Uyg'urlarni tutib olib Xitoyda jazolaganligi o'rtasida mohiyatli o'xshashlik bor. Bu bizni agar xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotininki o'zininki ashadagi tekshirishi va o'zininki aşağıdaki kuchini qanchalik darajada Ukrainaninki Rossiyaning Ukraina o'tkazgan jinoyatlarni tekshirishga sarf qilgan bo'lsa, Xitoyninki Tojikiston va boshqa davlatlarda Uyg'urlar qarshi yapgan jinoyat tekshirishga sarf qilish o'rtasida o'xshash bir o'lchamni qo'llanishga qarata bizning ishonchimizni oshiradi. Chunki bu yerda xalqaro qonunninki bu yerda tatbiq qilinish o'rtasida cho'ng farqi yo'q. Bu bizga bir yangi bir umidni olib keladi. Shuning uchun biz shunday qiyalamizki, xalqaro jinoiy ishlar soti Ukrainadagi Rossiyaning jinoyatini qanday tekshirgan bo'lsa, Xitoyninki Tojikiston va boshqa davlatlardagi jinoyatlarni o'xshash usulda tekshirish kerak deb qaraymiz. Bu bizningki bu Sharqi Turkiston va Uyg'ur masalasiningki xalqaro jinoiy ishlar soti tomonidan tekshirishga qarta bo'lgan ishonchimizni yana bir qatim oshirdi va bu Ukraina bizga bu vaqtda yangi bir o'rnakni ta'minladi deb qarashga bo'ladi. Endi oxirida biz Rodney'ninki ta'kidida bu yerda mushu masalalarni ishga oshirishda kelgusi qiladigan nurg'unlagan faoliyatlarimiz bor, oldimizda nurg'unlagan kun tartiblar bor. Bularni ishga oshirish uchun tirishyapmiz. Shuning bilan bir vaqtda biz bu oldimizda bugungi shu programmamizni ko'rayotganlarga 3 shunday bir muhim bir chaqiriqda bo'lmoqchi biz. Birinchi chaqiriqimiz Sharqi Turkiston masalasi va Uyg'ur masalasiningki xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotida qarab chiqilishi va Uyg'urlar qaratayotgan bu qatliamninki bu qilmishni olib berayotganlarning jinoyatini surishtirish va bu jinoyatning qurbonlari bo'lgan Uyg'urlarga adolatni yetkazish qatorliq ishlarda biz yanada hammalarninki bu haqda yordamiga muhtoj bo'lamiz. Bu sizlarninki mushu Uyg'ur masalasi, Sharq Turkiston masalasi va Uyg'ur masalasi mushlarni küçüklerinin yetkeni boyunca özünlerinin etraftakilerge ve özünlerine təvə rayondaki siyasiyonlarga ve başka kişi hukuk teşkilat qatarlıqlarga her vakit yetkizip duruşunlarını bu vaktiki uçurlarını ve haberlerini başkalarından əmbəhrilab duruşunlarını ümit qılımız. Çünkü bundaq boğa vaxtıda bu işinki ciddiyeti aşıdı, başkalarının kızıkışı tekidinmi aşıdı ve bunun nispeten biz bir cemaat fikri hasıl kılıp bu cemaat fikri arkalık biz siyasilerine en akısı cümleden Xalqara Jinoyat İşlar Sotu'ga belirlik derecede besim düşürümüz ve tesir göstermemiz de qaraş kıldı. Anadaki ikincisi bizdeki mühim bir işimiz bu bizdeki yakın arada nurgulgan faaliyetlerini uğurlaştırış arkalık Xalqara Jinoyat İşlar Sotu'nunki baş eyipli güçüsü bilen alaqamızda texidini küçeytiş, ularınki biz yollagan dokladlarını qarab çıkışını texidini tizletiş ve bu arkalık bizdeki Şarkı Türkistan'ın meselesininki Xalqara Jinoyat İşlar Sotu tarafından xalqaralık kanunlarınki ro'yi prensipleri ve tertipleri boyunca qarab çıkılışını ilgili sürüşde mühim rol oynadı deb qaraymiz. Anadaki biz üçüncü elbette vaxtımızda biz hemimizinki ictimai medialar arkalık özümüz bildiğin türlü şekildeki medialar ve başka ammavi faaliyetler arkalık bu meseleninki texdimi kengişi, texdimi köp adamlarınki dikkatini verişi ve bunun köngül bölüşünü kolga keltirişki tirişimiz gerek. Bu ahirki maksat bizninki şu Şarkı Türkistan'da hazır 101 vatkan katliam ve bunun tesirini biz Xalqara Jinoyat Sotu'nunki tekşiriş yolu arkalık tekşirişini kolga keltiriş ve bu arkalık Uygurlarga Xitayninki Uygurlarga yapılatkan katliamda kırılıvatkan Uygurlarga adalet etkileş. Uygurlarga ularınki derdini dünyada anlatıdığan ve özünü qarta cinayet ötküzüvatkan cezalaydıgan muşundak bir menzerini barlıq keltiriş için tirişimiz. Hem de ahırısta elbette bizninki bu işlerini Xalqara Jinoyat İşlar Sotu'da bir taraf kılışımız uzak sozuldu. Hem bunundaki bu qiyin bir mezgillerini başına ötküzüş mümkün. Bunun da biz hemminlarınki manevi cihetli qo'llashdan başka yana seninki iqtisodiy cihetli qo'llashinglarga muhtoj bo'lamiz. Çünkü bundaq deyishimizning sebebi bizninki bu faaliyetini izchil, sijil, unumli olib berishimizda iqtisodiy jihat seninki qo'llashinglar intan mühim o'rin turdi. Bu iqtisod bizninki mushaqqi siyasiler bilan parlament a'zolari başka hukumat xodimlari o'tkazadigan faoliyatlarimiz uchun sarf qilinadi. Shuningdek biz texidimi muhimi bu Xalqara Jinoyat İşlar Sotu'ga Uyghur ve Şarkı Türkistan meselesini sunuşta nurgulgan biz texidimi köp şahitler muhtaç bo'lamiz. Şahitler qancha köp bo'lsa, ularning bayani qancha tafsili ham pokitchanlik ega bo'lsa, bizningki xalqaro sotqa sunadigan bu bizningki materiallarimizningki pokitchanligi qoyil qilish kuchi texidimi oshadi. Buning uchun biz texidimi nurgulgan şahitlarni tepishga, ularga yordam berishga, ularninki 3. davlatga qochib chiqishga yordam berishga mecbur biz. Hem bu bizimki mühim bir burcumuzdan birisi. Bununla nispeten biz yanıla iqtisadi bir yardımga muhtaç bo'lamiz. Şu sebepten biz hemminlarninki bu vaqtda bizga iqtisodiy jihatda yordam berishinglarni umid qilamiz. Shundan bir vaqtda biz bu vaqtda yana boshqa faoliyatlarni olib berish, boshqa bu ishlarni qilishda boshqa bir faoliyatni olib berish va boshqa kişilerle görüşüş ve başka yığınların eçişe katarlık nurgulgan işlerini qilish jarayonidami yanıla iqtisodiy yordamga muhtoj bo'lamiz. Shuning uchun hammalarninki bizni axloqiy jihatda, ma'naviy jihatda ve iqtisodiy jihatda qo'llashinglarni umid qilamiz. Biz bu orqali eng oxirisida Sharqi Turkistonda azob chekayotgan Uyg'ur xalqininki dodininki, faryodininki Xalqaro Jinoyat İşlar Sotu orqali ko'rilib chiqishi ve ularninki shu dardiga darmon bo'lishini umid qilamiz. Bunun da biz hammamizningki bosh tortib bo'lmaydigan vazifamiz bor. Ham hammamizningki bu jihatda o'zaro yordamlashib, mana bu ishni ro'yobga chiqarish uchun kuchishimiz kerak. Bu albatta eng oxirida Sharqi Turkistonda azob chekayotgan xalq uchun bo'ladi. Mening so'zim tugadi. So I have finished my translation of Mr. Dixon's speech. Now it's question and answer time. Please feel free to put your questions out there. We can see it, and Mr. Dixon will answer your questions. So now the floor is open to you. You can put your questions out there. Endi hozirgi soatda biz savol-javob nimasiga keldik. Savol-javob qismida biz hammanglarningki bu haqda so'raydigan savoling bo'lsa so'rashinglarni umid qilamiz. Dixon apandim sizlarning savolinglarga javob berdi yoki savolinglarga Salih yoki men o'zim tava qismiga javob beramiz. Shunga hammanglarningki tortinmay erkin ozod savolinglarni so'rashinglarni umid qilaman. Qistirib qo'ydiganim agar savolinglar Uyg'urcha bo'lsa, Uyg'urcha so'zlasanglar, men Uyg'urchani inglizchaga tarjima qilib, Dixon apandimning diqqatiga havola qilaman. Qani. Tortinmay savol so'ranglar. So it's a question and answer section. Please feel free to, you are welcome to put your questions to us. So, Mr. Dixon, I would like to translate one question from a person from Holland. I will translate it. I am a political activist based in Holland. My name is Abdurrahim Hini. The U.S. government has recognized Tibet as an China occupied country by China. However, we haven't been able to let the other countries recognize us as an occupied country by China, like Tibet. And I have organized a solo or one-man demonstration in Amsterdam for the past 3 years, and among my activities, one of the key parts of my activities is the concern of the people that it's related to. I can't see the rest of the question. Sorry. That their concern is the political stats of the East Turkistan that I would like to explain to them. I have tried to explain to them that East Turkistan is an occupied country by China. So what's your take on this matter? Because I can't read the rest of the question. So that's where I could see the whole question. Yes, this is a question.
What I would say at the outset is that the question of occupation doesn't affect the ICC case in any way. In other words, the ICC case should go ahead and have jurisdiction irrespective of whether occupation has been recognized or not. I think that is important to emphasize. We are focusing on the violations of the ICC statute to be able to give the court jurisdiction. We don't have to get international recognition of the issue of occupation. So certainly, just explain that in relation to the ICC case. In relation to the question more generally, I agree that the campaign that he is waging is one which should be taken up with governments because it's a very valid one to look at the question of occupation and the question of the future of East Turkestan as well. This is not a matter the ICC will be able to address, but it's certainly a matter that can be addressed at the governmental level.
Sualınızdaki cevabı ben tercüme qilay. Abdurrahim G'ani. Yani bu xalqaro jinoiy ish sotininki Sharq Turkiston masalasiga qarab chiqishida Şərqi Türkistandakı Xitay tərəfindən besilinən zemin ikənligi mühim emas bununda. Ən mühimi Şərqi Türkistandakı muş məsələninki xalqara jinoiy ishlar sotininki o'zininki ko'ngil bildirgan va bir taraf qildigan shu tartiblari va prinsiplarining ichida bo'lish bo'lmasligi. Agar buni ichida bo'ladi ekan, u xalqaro jinoiy ishlar soti buni qarab chiqadi. Hamda albatta sizningki Şərqi Türkistandakı besilingan zemin ikənligi haqidagi tashviqotlar intayin muhim. Amma bu albatta hükümetler bu meseleni ko'ngil bilishi va bu masalaga ko'ngil bilishi kerak. Buni shu hükümetlarniki doirasida appaga yaxshi, ammo xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotida Sharq Turkistonninki besilingan zemin ikkanligi va emasligini isbotlash u muhim emas. Muhimi bizningki mushu sunayotgan, ya'ni Uyg'urlarninki Sharq Turkiston mush masalasiningki xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotining doirasidagi ish emasligi. Albatta bu uning ichidagi doirasi ish bo'lganligi uchun bu ishni qilyapmiz. Now, Rodney, there's another question. Let me just read it first. This is also another good question. How are you, Mr. How are you? I am a Chinese concentration camp survivor and witness as well. And I had been put in the concentration for 8 months without any crime. And not only I was put in not only in concentration camp but also in prison for 8 months, where I went through unspeakable oppression and suffering. And my question is, how can I get the compensation for my suffering? There are also 6 other concentration camp survivors like me. If possible, we would like to put our complaints to anywhere. So regardless of the financial costs. So my question is, how could we get the compensation for our suffering? This is the question.
First of all, the ICC does provide compensation if there's a conviction. They provide reparations to the victims. But you have to have a criminal trial first. So we have to get the case open, you have to prosecute people, and only at the end can they provide compensation. But the ICC is one route for doing it. Otherwise, you have to look at civil options. You can't sue the Chinese state because they have immunity in national courts, but you might be able to sue the individuals concerned. The individuals who perpetrated these acts against you. If you know who they are, if you're able to name them, there might be avenues to sue them in particular courts depending on jurisdiction. So it's certainly a matter that can be looked into if you are able to identify persons who are the main perpetrators. Of course, our focus is on bringing the case at the ICC, but also if there are viable civil claims, it might be that they can be looked at. We are also looking at universal jurisdiction options, prosecuting in national jurisdictions, which might produce compensation as well. So one has to pursue every available channel.
Ömer Bekali qilishimiz bu Rodney Dixonninki javobini men tarjima qilib, albatta oldi bilan xalqaro jinoiy soti to'lab berdi. Ammo xalqaro jinoiy sotininki sizninki azob oqibatlaringizni to'lab berishningki oldingi sharti biz yo'llagan bu materiallarninki xalqaro jinoiy ishlar soti tarafidan bir xil buna nisbatan jinoiy bir sot ochilishi kerak. Jinoiy sot ochilish bu tartib bo'lgandan keyin shu jinoiy sotninki yakuni sifatida, ya'ni uningki berilgan sotdan keyingi unga nisbatan jazo kesilgan vaqtda, bu vaqtda buning bir qismi sifatida bu nima beriladi deydi, bu to'lam beriladi deydi. Hamda ikkinchisi bu albatta bu puhraviy jarayon, ya'ni puhraviy tanlash yoki shaklda bu nimaga to'lamga erishib bo'ldi. Ammo Xitoyni bir davlat sifatida jazoga tortib buningdan to'lam talab qilish asosan mumkin emas. Bu mumkin emas. Ammo mühim nokta bu ki. Ama sizge şu azap okubatlarını sağan şəxslərə qarata bunundan bir bulanı eyipləş və arqalıq ulanı cəzalıtış. Yani özünüz turbatqan şu dövlətlərinki və başqa dövlətlərin qanunu və başqa qanun arqalıq ulanı cəzalıtış arqalıq ma'lum to'lamga erishgili bo'ladi deb qaraladi. Bu fuqaroviy shaklda, ya'ni shaxslarni o'zingizga shu zulm qilgan shaxslarni arz qilish orqali bularga to'lam to'latish bo'ladi deb qaraydi. Hamda bizningki eng oxirgi maqsadimiz xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotida shu Sharqi Turkiston masalasini qaratish, buning uchun jinoiy ishlar soti ichish va jinoiy ishlar sotida bu Xitoy davlatini buni sotga tortish orqali bu biz mushu nishon yetmoqchi bo'layotganligimiz uchun bu jarayonda agar buningda biz muvaffaqiyatli bo'lsak, bu vaqtda to'lamga erishishga bo'ladi deb qaraydi.
I've seen this next question here, which I can answer about the UN High Commissioner's report.
Yes.
Very important question. Thank you for asking it. It is vital that the report is made public. It's inexplicable why it's taking so long for it to come out, because it is a report that is meant to look at these very issues. It may be that the visit there has delayed it, but still, it is vital for it to see the light of day, because what is said there could well become relevant evidence for the ICC, and we would certainly, depending on the veracity of the report, highlight it for the ICC and provide it to the ICC as part of our evidence. It could well be that it corroborates a lot of the material which we have. We have to see what the report says first. But it's also very important because it would be the UN High Commissioner speaking on this very issue, which could then be important for the steps that the ICC is going to take. As I mentioned earlier, what the UN says, what international bodies say, what governments say, does have a bearing on the actions of the ICC. And we've seen in the past where the UN has conducted inquiries, that those inquiries have either formed the basis of investigations or have been used in investigations. So it could be a very important building block, and it's vital that it comes out without delay.
Bu yana bir savol bir qarindishimiz so'rabdi, ya'ni Birlashgan Davlatlar Tashkilotininki yuksak komissiyonininki shu doklatininki bizningki qilayotgan shu hozirgi Sharq Turkiston masalasiniki xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sudida qaralib chiqishiga bir ta'siri bo'lamdi deyildi. Albatta ta'siri bo'ladi. Buningda bu Birleşken Devletler Teşkilatı yüksek komisyoninki Şarkı Türkistan, yani Uygurlar hakkındaki doklatınınki elbette bu bizninki Şarkı Türkistan meselesini xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sudida qarab chiqishni qo'lga keltirishimizda intan muhim bir ahamiyat ega. Undan sirt hozir bu Birleşken Devletler Teşkilatı Kishilik huquq komissiyasininki bosh komissiyoninki yaqinda Xitoyga olib boriladigan ziyarati bor. Bu ziyorat hozircha ozroq kechiktirilyotdi. Mana qanday bo'lmasin, bu yerda agar Birleşken Devletler Teşkilatı'nınki meyli bu vaqtdagi doklati bo'lsin yoki Birleşken Devletler Teşkilatı'nınki yüksek komisyoninki bu vaqtdagi bayonoti bo'lsin. Bularning hammasi bizninki doklatımızdaki yoki bizningki arzimizningki bir qismi bo'la oladi. Intan muhim bir qism bo'la oladi. Bu orqali biz o'zimizningki doklatimizning kuchini oshira olamiz. Albatta biz ilgariki bizning tajribamizdan ma'lumki Birleşken Devletler Teşkilatı ba'zi vaqtlarda kishilik huquq haqidagi ba'zi ishlarda ma'lum bir tekshirishni boshlab, o tekshirishni e'lon qilgan vaqtda buningki natijasi albatta xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotiga yo'llangan va xalqaro jinoiy ishlar soti tarafidan foydalangan tarafim bor. Undan sir bizda mayli Birleşken Devletler Teşkilatı bo'lsin, mayli boshqa davlatlar bo'lsin, yoki davlatning parlamentlari bo'lsin, yoki kishilik huquq tashkilotlarining doklatlari bo'lsin va mush haqdagi degan dokladları yoki so'zlanishlar va ba'zi bir tonishlar bo'lsin, bularning hammasininki xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotida o'zimizningki yo'llangan arzimizni kuchini oshirishda intan roli var. Hem bu başka vaqtlardan bu shunday shaklda qilinib keldi. Shuning uchun bu materiallarninki, bu dokladlarninki ve bu vaqtdagi bayonotlar ve başka shakldagi faoliyatlarninki hammasi yig'ib aytgan vaqtda bizningki xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotidagi bu işimiz arzimizningki qarab chiqilishi va uningki pokitchanligini oshirish, qarab chiqilishini tezlatish qatorliq jihatlardagi ta'siri yoki unumi nihoyat yaxshi bo'ladi deb qaraymiz. Yana başka savolinglar bormi? Do you have any other questions? So there is, I would like to add one thing, that there is a website address for crowdfunding. If you are willing to support us financially, please use this website link where you are able to submit your financial support to us, actually in a quite direct and efficient way. So as Rodney Dixon said, that it's crucial for us to have very sustainable, consistent and effective activities and campaigns. We need your financial support along with your moral and also other supports. So thank you so much. Please use this website address. Mavo bayada bir mushahda sizlarninki iqtisodiy jihatda yordaminglarni qo'lga keltirish uchun sizlarga bir tor betininki adresi yo'llandi. Abay deb o'tganimizdek bizningki shu Sharqi Turkiston va Uyg'ur masalasiningki xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sudida qarilib chiqishini qarta sijil va unumli bo'lgan bir harakatni barliq keltirishimizda vaqt uzoq ketadi. Shundan bir vaqtda buning uchun biz iqtisodiy jihatda sizlarning yordaminglarga muhtoj. Bu vajidan biz sizlarga shu tor betininki adresini avatdik. Bu adresda sizlar o'zinglarning iqtisodiy yordamini shu ish uchun bevosita avatalasa va o'zinglarning bizning bu harakatlarimizga bo'lgan qo'llashinglarni ifodalasa. Hammanglarga oldindan rahmat aytaman. So if you don't have any questions, you still have time. Otherwise, we would like to wrap it up with our thanks to Mr. Rodney and also Mr. Saleh for their indefatigable efforts to make it happen. So we are hopeful that the International Criminal Court will review all our dossiers and bring justice to the perpetrators of this genocide of China against Uyghurs. Justice will prevail. Hammanglarninki bugungi vaqtinglarga biz bilan birga bo'lganligingiz ko'p rahmat. Men bu yerda alohida qilib Rodney apandimga va Salih Xudoyor apandimga rahmat aytaman. Bizningki biz shuni umid qilamizki, Sharq Turkiston va Uyg'ur masalasiningki xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sudi yo'llangan materiallar cho'qim bir kuni ularninki qarab chiqishiga erishidi va bu orqali biz Sharq Turkistonda Xitoyninki irqiy qirg'inchiligida azob chekayotgan, xo'rlanayotgan xalqimizga adolatni olib kelishga tirishimiz. Shundan bir vaqtda bu orqali biz buni sodir qilganlarni xalqaro qonunlar bo'yicha sudga tortishga muvaffaq bo'lamiz. Shu vaqtda adolat g'alaba qilgan bo'ladi. U kelmaguncha bizningki hech zamon bu ishni to'xtatib qo'ymaymiz. Biz hech vaqt buni to'xtatib qo'ymaymiz, ham hech zamon bu ishdan voz kechmaymiz. Hammalarga rahmat.
Thank you very much.